Hello my little dronies, welcome back to finally another Marathons video. I know it has been a long time. Wait a second, 2 entire months? Oh my god, you guys have really been starving for some content. But what could I do? Talk about fan series? No, I don't know what to talk about. Digital Circus? No, people weren't interested in that. Maybe I watch some random gaming videos to get some ideas.
You understand when you criticize something, it's not because you hate it, it's because you want it to improve. If you didn't care about something or you actually truly hated it and didn't love it, you wouldn't say anything. It's always better to have criticism than to have apathy.
I've got an idea!
Let's make an entire video about criticizing murder-ons. Better just say, to point out all the missed opportunities it could have taken. But not because I hate it or because I don't like murder-ons. I almost perfectly love it in the way it is right now. Only thing is that me and many more people believe that murder-ons is such a good concept of show or universes entirely that you can do so many different things with it. For example, if you take any fan-made comic of any fan-made OCs or something like that, you find an idea which you just wish would be more explored in a main show. But I'm going to take a few of my personal favorites which I would have loved to see more explored, because honestly I first have written down a script for every single missed opportunity, but this video was entirely 3 hours long. I'm not kidding. So I've decided only to do my favorite ones. But favorite is relative here because this is one of my most hated points, that the characters barely develop at all, because in my personal opinion the character development and the characters interaction is the thing that makes Marathons great. Not the horror, not the comedy, it's just nice things on top, but the characters is what makes it so great. And it's especially confusing that the characters barely change. Like, they have character arcs but they don't change the character. If you look at Uzi, in the beginning she's an angsty teenager with too much power, and if you look at her in the end, she's still the same angsty teenager but with now even more power. And disassembly drawn friends at her side. Take a look at V. Okay, she's the only one that actually somewhat changed, but still at the beginning she was the confident warrior girl that didn't really want to be a part of the main cast, but kinda deep down in her she was still a good guy. And now in the end of the series it's the exact same. And even though we saw Anne having a PTSD attack and even having development with Uzi and him being sad and actually killing Tessa for Uzi, in the end it's still just the same character all over again. And the character that actually got development, Doll, was killed off before she actually could finish her arc, because like she got her revenge on V, which wasn't really the case, which wasn't real revenge because V survived, and she didn't get her Solver cured, and she also didn't get to fight the Solver alongside Uzi or against Uzi or help Uzi at all. And the same we have for V. Like, V learned over the course of the series that she doesn't have to do everything on her own. She can rely on others and she can actually trust Uzi, and she slowly learns that it's okay to ask for help. And even in the end where she sacrifices herself to save Uzi because she knows she trusts her, at the moment where she sacrificed herself the character basically could have stayed dead, because as soon as we come back it's like someone pressed the reset button and everything is back to the beginning. Of course, there's one line in the final fight where there's no more deception and stuff, but like, the character development in Marathons functions in one way. That is, you have the basic character that stays the same the entire show, and if the character is developed, there's always just little scenes where they actually have a changed character, but otherwise they always stay the same. Like, there are references that they changed, or like small hints that they have a changed character, but in the end they always stay the same. Which, the problem with that is, the things they experienced get less value from that, because you learn from your mistakes, and if you don't learn from them, why make the mistake in the first place? You know what I mean? And this was just the first point of my long lists of things Marathons could have done better, and we are already almost 5 minutes long in the video. See what I meant by this video could take an entire hour and I didn't cover everything. But up next is the mystery of the show. And I'm not talking about the intentional mystery, I'm talking about the unexplained mysteries. Like the big one where I don't even have to look at my script to remember that. The solver isn't explained at all, or better to say, how everything functions isn't explained in the show at all. Like, there are some things that Liam Vickers said once, but the canonicity of those things is questionable at last, because it's said in the first episode that the Semilons die without oil, and Liam Vickers once said that they overheat and that they are going to die without cooling, and the cooling they are getting is from the oil that they eat, and that the semidrons themselves are like extremely hot, that they probably would burn your skin off if you touch them. And yet in the show N doesn't accidentally light a piece of paper on fire, or like it's mentioned once in the beginning that they need oil to survive and they never eat oil again. Like, was this just fake propaganda by Sin that was told it is assembly drones, so they continue to eat worker drones? Or another example, we have no idea what the Solver is. Are Sin and Solver the same entity? Is the Solver some form of eldritch creature from another universe that gives the power to drones to destroy the fabric of reality with black holes and makes them able to teleport around? Did humans program the Solver? Is the Solver the thing that made the drones self-aware? No, it isn't. It's like a personality core that the drones have, which is those little heart crabs that Uzi and N had. But those things aren't explained in the show. I actually don't know where I know those things from, because those facts are dropped alongside something else all the time, but never mentioned in the real show. Of course, it would feel out of place if they just lore dump this explanation out of nowhere, but I mean, there's a lot of fan art out there which shows Uzi quickly sharing a little bit of oil with N, which maybe N could also feast on a dead worker drone, and that would fix a lot of plot holes of, if you want just some dialogue to explain it, they could have said they eat off screen, or it's funny that they didn't have to eat oil. Like, there's so many things that are unexplained of how they actually work. Like, are there still humans in the galaxy? How many planets were actually colonized? Is Earth the only planet that was consumed by Sin? Or is Copper 9 just one of many? Like, if Murder Drones one day gets a sequel, then it's a good thing that we still have so many questions, because those questions can be explained in the sequel. But if Murder Drones ends right here, there are so many points that has to be explained by the community, and you have to make your own headcanon. Because if you go blind into Murder Drones and just take the things you know that are said in the show, you would be totally confused. I mean, the exact same feeling is that we had during episode 5, where nobody actually had idea what was going on, and we later realized through fan theories and stuff like that, it was a backflash in the memories of N and V, which also was changed because the Solver was interrupting that backflash and Uzi was interrupting that backflash. But like, how were you supposed to know that? I still remember that some people actually thought Uzi traveled back in time and changed the past, because it's just so confusing how the Solver works. And speaking about confusing, I already talked a little bit about V and a few other characters alongside it, but I haven't yet talked about Doll specifically, not because I forgot about her, but because I specifically left all the stuff about her for this video segment, because in terms of wasted potential, V and Doll have a very close race with one another, but V could potentially still have character arcs, or better to say, in the end of the series she's still alive, so she still can change, grow and stuff like that, so that her character arc is unfinished isn't as scarring as with Doll, because she is pretty much confirmed to be dead. Like in the Murder Drone universe, nobody stays dead for long, but one thing is most of the time certain: if one of the cores is destroyed, it means the character is dead permanently. Unless you are Jay, in that case, what do I know?
Effective drones were cloned more.
Shut the But Doll's character arc goes even further back than the first episode, because in the concept art we can clearly see that she strikes quite a funny pose, smiles and overall looks like a happy girl. Same we see with in the first episode, and the fact that she's best friends with Lizzie, which if you look at Doll now, in her feature episode, she's really depressed and angry and stuff. And if you think about it, those two kinds of friends would never connect with one another like they do. So my theory is that after the death of her parents through V, Doll completely changed her persona. And I mean, you basically in the show have one scene where they are friends together. This point of Doll's character you never get really to see in the show. And then she comes to her revenge arc, where she tries to kill V, but fails at it. But even though she fails at it and is the villain of the episode, she still has this hint of humanity in her when she talks to Uzi, because Uzi is also infected with the Solver, but instead Uzi, we see that she actively suffers under it, but Doll doesn't even for a single second have problems with her Solver or struggles with it. So we can think that Doll has problems with the Solver and struggles with it, and that's why she understands Uzi, but we never see it. We have to think it. And then furthermore, Doll's only goals were to cure her Solver and revenge her parents. In her eyes, she revenged her parents, but now she needed to cure her Solver, which she failed, and she utterly got destroyed by Sinessa because she couldn't use her Solver against her, and that's why she absolutely failed and died instantly. But like, with the reveal that Tessa kills Doll, we already knew she was evil and something like that, like the final confirmation. So the twist that Doll dies behind Uzi, and Uzi thinks that Tessa thinks that Uzi killed Doll, you know what I mean? like it doesn't work because we already know Tessa was going to kill Uzi in that scene anyways, whatever is going to happen. And then we got the Sinessa reveal where Sin did her thing and ate the core of Doll to become even stronger. And in writing stories, it's a common trope if you have a strong character to get killed or taken out by an even stronger character to introduce that character. As an example, in Marvel, I can't show pictures because copyright, but in Endgame, there's one scene where the Hulk tries to fight Thanos. Before that scene, we thought that Hulk was one of the strongest Avengers, and as Thanos entered the game, he instantly beat up the Hulk so that he couldn't stand up anymore, and this was to introduce the Thanos as the new biggest villain, and that's the same with Sin. Because Sin killed the strongest one in the room basically to introduce her presence, but through that we could never see Doll actually fighting with her solver or with the cause of her solver, which would be Sin, and also with the fact that V is still alive, which I'm glad about it. But Doll was by far the most determined character in the entire show and probably the only hero, and she had so much determination but none of her goals actually were resolved. And then in the end, in the final credits after scene, we even get a little jab to all the Doll fans that everyone is happy and alive and cheering. Even the main villain is still alive, but there's like a few frames of the dead corpse of Doll still lying down there. And also in the credits there's a weird scene where Lizzie holds a presentation to everyone about Doll. I don't know what this is about. And even in the credits is a scene where you might go, though her soul is alive because there's a hologram version of Doll or something. It was confirmed that Doll is no longer alive, she is dead, and this scene is just a reference to her introduction scene in episode 3, exactly like we don't have an eldritch being anymore because this scene was a reference to episode 2. So all what Doll tried to do and wanted to do basically felt empty and unaccomplished, even though she's the character you want to root for the most, besides like someone like V, which, as I stated in the beginning, you can at least cope with the fact that V could still change her character because she's still alive. Doll is no longer. But I have seen this great concept from, I think it was Murder Unsolved, where the ghost of Sin and the ghost of Doll, because Sin ate Doll, which means both of the ghosts should be inside of Uzi's head, and also both of the solvers of them, which would make Uzi even stronger than Sin at her peak, which is scary to think about. But this would be a great way to introduce a fan favorite character back, because another wasted potential is that we get this final form of Uzi with Sin in her head, which should be used for incredible amounts of interactions and fan services between Sin and Uzi and the rest of the gang, which could also bring back Doll. But like, we see this concept in the last 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, in the last 5 seconds of the show. And like, it was previously stated that we won't get any more Murder, or better to say we won't get a season 2. Maybe we get a comic or something, or a spin-off series, but in that case, why do we get an obviously post-credit scene kind of when there's nothing planned for the future, if you get my drill? And overall, it's just a really cool design, and I wish we could have seen more of it. And what the design means, that Sin and Uzi are in the same body now. Also, I really like that concept. I also have made a concept of this even before episode 8 was released that was similar, with 2 of those eye colors. So the potential is there to do great things with it, just like, yeah, I already mentioned it. And now I'm going to make a quick speed round to finish up a few last things, because I have to make a little bit of news at the end of this video. Like, these are minor things, but I still want to point them out, and I would have liked the show exploring those details a little bit more. For example, how everything worked, like not just the server but also the disassembly drones, because are the visors the eyes, or are like those little glowing bits on the hair the eyes? And if the little glowing bits on the hairs is the eyes, where do the normal drones have their eyes? Or like in the end of the 8th episode, Copper 9 had like a red sky, not because there was like a sunset, but presumably because the atmosphere is broken or something by Sin, and for some reason the sky is now red. My question now is the sky permanently red, or was it just for the finale? Another thing of how the disassembly drones work is the X on the screen always appears if they enter combat mode. And for example, the scene when N snaps and kills Tessa, there's this really interesting scene of one of his eyes is just a normal eye, his normal personality, but the other side is his deadly side, his murderous persona, the one eye X. So kinda the X is the program killing side, and the normal eyes are like the humane personality one of the drones. This is just a theory I have come up with of how to explain the X, but I personally would have liked if there is an explanation to see one. Another bit is that we basically don't have side characters. Like, of course there's Thad and Lizzie and stuff like that, but like the background characters all look almost identical. They have each their separate names, but I couldn't tell them apart for the life of me. And for the human background characters, I don't even have to explain why they can't be told apart. And of course we know Sin, Uzi, V are the main characters, but like apparently Jay is also a main character, which it gotten better through the last episode, but she barely got any screen time at all, and it feels like she should be a background character at least, but every time she appears and has dialogue, she's treated like a main character that always has been there, so there's just a little disconnect there. I feel like, I don't know if there's a way to fix it, but still. And also I mentioned that the mystery in the show is very confusing, because there's so many details and little hints in the background that could point you to one direction of the story going, not just because it makes sense, but just to have a mystery. Like in the one scene where Sin takes off her Tessa suit and creeps out Uzi in the 4th episode, like why would Sin ever logically take her suit off? Of course with Sin you can explain everything because she wanted to be silly, but like it really doesn't make sense how she was stalking N was stalking Uzi just to literally do nothing, because like in the scene where she actually attacks Uzi and N, they were together and could fight her together off, but in the other scene they were alone and couldn't defend against Sin at all, and she would have won in the end. But this is just one of many examples, I don't have the time to point out right now, of just plot points that appear and are seemingly just there to confuse you and being forgotten about in the last episode, because like Nori is like the only core that is still kicking around, but if drones only can die if the cores are destroyed, why haven't we seen any other drones core crawling around? Because like, of course, if the semi-drones are specifically programmed to target the cores, I can explain that. Maybe the sentinels got lucky and we don't saw the cores of those. But how casually death is treated in the Murder Drones universe, in the colony there must have at least some people died along the way. Or for example, the one drone that we shot in the face, maybe she regenerated her face after that, but if not, where is her core? Like, that thing should be still intact. And also there's like no major reason why you shouldn't have a core or why you should have a core, because there's always the explanation Uzi and Sin had cores because they had the solver, but N also had a core and he didn't have the solver, maybe because he was created through the solver and stuff like that. Like, it's just confusing of all the plot points, and this is why I ask in the thumbnail if Murder Drones is still a good series beside its flaws. You thought this was a clickbait thumbnail? No, it was actually prepared for the end. This question comes up to me a lot because I can point out all day long how many flaws Murder Drones has and still say in my objective opinion that Murder Drones is a good show. But how is that so? My personal opinion, many people say the horror, many people say it's a comedy of the show. There are multiple reasons and everyone can have their own. But I think the true reason why Murder Drones is such a popular series is because all the characters, doesn't matter how background they are loved in any sort of way. Like the one drone with the burning head is like a community favorite character, but I bet nobody of you will actually know the name. I know the name, but I actually want to know how many of you do. Write down in the comments, and maybe even you find some people that actually know the name and write it down. This is because all the concepts of the characters and all the characters designs and everything about the characters is so lovable, and in most of my videos I show off funny clips of interactions between the characters, and many people create short little fan comics of just like funny interactions between Emo Uzi and Wholesome N, or Cool Guy Thad together with Annoying J. And I think this essence of all those characters being so great and having so many interactions together that are so amazing and lovable, I think the biggest missed opportunity of the show is that although we got all these many perfect interactions, we still want more even though the show has ended, because Murder Drones has maybe not more story left in terms of a big overarching narrative, but there's almost an infinite amount of characters' interactions that still could be explored, and I think that is the reason why people want more Murder Drones, not because they're interested in still more story. I mean, of course they are, but the thing is, people always going to say there is more or they want more, because there's this infinite potential of character exploration that just can't be explored in a reasonable amount of time, especially for an indie studio. But in the end, I think I still can say, just for the fact that we still have these characters in the first place, shows what of a great show Murder actually is. And this would mark the end of this video. I just want to mention something personal of why it took so long to get this video out. If you're a first time viewer or just see me for the first time and don't really care, you can click off, maybe leave a subscribe if you want. But for those people that are curious, I put an explanation here in the end. For everyone else, I hope you have a great day. But to everyone that stayed and is interested in this, I've been really sick the past couple of days. Actually, I've been sick now for 3 weeks, and while it's have started to become better lately, that's why also this video exists now. At the point of recording this, it started to getting worse again. And apparently it's not just your average cold or something that would knock me out for some weeks and then I'd be totally fine again. Because apparently after a recent checkup by the doctor, we have been informed that there's a slight chance that I could possibly suffocate while I sleep because I have extremely strong coughing. You really didn't notice throughout this entire video, but like throughout this entire video, there are probably like 5 minutes of pure coughing that I had to cut out. And while I do not want any sympathy or like make up any excuses, I just wanted to inform the people that were curious, because I have gotten many people asking where the next video is and why I've been taking so long. The thing is, I really don't want to talk about it much because it's kind of scary to think about it myself, but at first we thought it was just a regular sickness because there were no major symptoms. But after the checkup by the doctor that told us that it's not just a regular sickness, it's yeah, whatever. And I know this is kind of a sour way to end off this video now, but honestly, I strongly doubt that I alive just by the fact alone that the doctor told me if I haven't started the medication like 1 day later, that there's a good chance I could have been unalive. Yeah, but anyways, I hope we see us in the next video and goodbye.